Halloween Kills is directed by David Gordon Green and stars Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and among others. And this is the sequel to the last film of 2018's Halloween that was also a sequel to the original Halloween from 1978. And this story, it picks up right where the end of the last film leaves off, where Laurie Strode is in the hospital. And if you've seen from the trailer, basically Michael Myers is still alive after the events of the last movie, and he ends up getting pretty much escaping from the house that was burned in the last film, and he goes on a rampage, and it's basically now caused the attention of the whole townsfolk that gets in on basically trying to stop Michael Myers before his reign of terror continues throughout the spring throughout the town of Haddonfield. And it also brings back some familiar characters that we haven't that were from the original film as well, including Tommy Doyle, Lindsay Wallace, Sheriff Brackett, and among others. Now here's some backstory. Now, if you've been following my channel for a while, I've gone on, I've talked about Halloween in the past when I did a retrospective of me and Eddie on the films, and I'm not going to go into too much depth, but if you see from our the last review we did of Halloween 2018, I wasn't really a fan of it. I found the movie to be really disappointing and really just kind of an unnecessary movie that really didn't really need to continue to be a straight sequel to the original film. Because to me, I always felt like Halloween, even though itself is the best of the series, I still really enjoyed the fact that there are sequels that exist that were able to make a spin on certain things that I liked. Like, I mean, the second best sequel to me was always Halloween 2, and even though it's come to attention nowadays that a lot of people don't like it because of the whole sibling thing, and that it doesn't have the same type of atmosphere or anything like the first film, but even still, I found the movie to still be a great follow-up to the first film, and I knew it was never going to top the original film, even when I was younger. I always considered it to be just a good fun slasher film that was made for the 80s, coming off the heels of the first film and stuff. And being able to expand the story and everything was what I really liked out of a sequel like that. And, really exploring more of, giving us more of a continuation of the first that while it's taken away the mystery of Michael Myers, I still thought it worked. And, and when the last movie came out in 2018, I just wasn't really interested because of the fact that it was basically ignoring all the shit that happened in 2, and then also ignoring pretty much everything else that followed. Well, granted, I still really enjoy 4, but I think 4 was like the last great sequel up until H2O, which I actually liked, even though it has its issues. So, I mean, with the last movie, with them pretty much, retconning stuff from all the sequels, and, and also really retconning stuff from the first film really made me really mad. And so with this one, I had the most lowest expectations as possible. And it only got me really mildly curious because the fact that I heard that this was going to be seeing Michael Myers like at his most highest body count and giving us the most brutalest stuff that you can really expect. And while going into that was maybe mildly curious, I can honestly say after finally seeing the film, I thought it was decent, but I liked it better than the last movie, but not saying much. The movie still suffers a lot of problems like I had with the last film, but some of the things I will say that it does that does do better with the first film, with the last film, really did help in this regard. So to get my pros out of the way, I will say that, as you come to expect, the performances in this, for the most part, at least from Jamie Lee Curtis, Judy Greer, and Anthony Michael Hall, I thought were pretty strong in this. I thought that they really carried their own, and it's great seeing a different take of Tommy Doyle that's different in this timeline. Seeing him grown up from the original film, and a lot more different than what we saw him in with his grown-up version played by Paul Rudd in Curse of Michael Myers, where in this one he becomes, well, in a way he kind of has he's going for a more Negan style kind of approach of being a badass, and to be honest, I kind of thought it worked for his character and leading the group, the townspeople and everything. And it was also really fun to see a lot of familiar faces come back, including the original girl that played Lindsay Wallace in the original is back. You got Charles Cyphers come back as Sheriff Brackett. You even got the nurse who played the nurse from the first 2 movies was back as well. And it was great seeing them back, and I do also like some of the other little references that we get, much like in the last film, they actually do make a good homage to Halloween 3 Season of the Witch in some scenes with the mask, And I thought that was a nice little tribute to that film, because a lot of people don't like Halloween 3, and I can understand a lot of them don't really like in the third one, since it doesn't have Michael Myers and everything, and among other reasons. But I still really enjoy Halloween 3 with how it was able to do its own thing over the years. And so them doing a little nod to that was kind of cool, with the little masks and the things that they wear. Now, to get my other pros out of the way, I will say that, much like in the last film, Michael Myers as a central part of the film is what I really enjoyed the most in this. And they don't hold back on showing a lot of the brutality that he's known for. Like, he is slaughtering he's slaughtering people fucking left and right, with massacring throughout the entire film. And in fact, if I've heard correctly, I think this is probably his most highest body count that he's had probably in the entire franchise. And they don't hold back. They go into some great detail on some shit where he is like plucking eyeballs out. You know, he's going his way through massacring in the most brutal ways you can think of. And they don't hold back in this. And it gets really out there, especially toward the end when they get to their climax. So the Michael Myers himself in this is like his most brutalist, I think. Probably not counting the Rob Zombie films, but I think probably since Halloween Curse of Michael Myers in that regard. And so that was one of my biggest strong points I have with the film. And, you know, getting into some other pros, I will say that the music, once again by John Carpenter coming back, was great. I really enjoyed the score in this, much like in the last film. It's cool hearing one of the other, like, the classic music that you hear from the original 1978 version comes back. And I got to really especially in where I get to more of my pros with the flashbacks that they do. Where in this, they actually do some really good stuff that, in a way, does make me feel like, okay, they actually fixed the problems I had in the last film, where they didn't actually ignore the events of the first film's ending. They actually expanded upon it in a very interesting way that I thought worked. And you know what? I will give it this too, is that Will Patton's character, I thought, was expanded furthermore in this, where we get to see more of his character in flashbacks. That was of the night of when the original film took place, that I thought was great. And it really made his character really a lot more, it made his character a lot more fleshed out in this that I really enjoyed. Now, the other thing, and speaking of the 1978 flashbacks, that I gotta really say, the way it's shot and the way it looks, it really does resemble like it would have came out from the 70s in those scenes and everything. And the way that they were able to capture the look of Michael Myers, the mask, I thought was great again. And surprisingly enough, and I didn't know about this, they actually got a guy that actually looked just like Donald Pleasance. And I was surprised that it wasn't CGI, and I thought that was really great. So the stuff that they do to really expand stuff in the original film I thought was interesting, despite me preferring the story more in the original second film. Because I'll get into some of my cons later. That's where I kind of fall into more of the writing in this, and a lot of the story problems I will get into. But before that, one of the other things I will say is that when it comes to the way it's also the cinematography, the way that we get into see more of the townspeople doing cool stuff to really like go after Michael Myers, I thought that was pretty interesting how they expanded on something like that from the fourth film. Even though it's retcon, it seems like they took that original idea and made it more like that in this one, where you have like the whole town pretty much going after Michael Myers. And it does have a great climax that I will say really worked for that regard. But now this is kind of where I go into more of my cons. And as much as I enjoyed a lot of the kills and as much as brutal as Michael Myers is in this, I will honestly say that it still has some of the same issues I had as far as writing from the last film and the story. Where in this movie, it makes you really think from the trailers that Michael Myers is kind of going after Laurie Strode like he was in the last film. But honestly, it really feels like it's a very empty, it really feels like they almost completely forgot about Laurie Strode throughout the entire film, where she's in it, but it really almost seems like her really presence in this didn't really have much of a purpose. Now, I won't go into detail of really what they do with Michael Myers in this, but let's just say that that's one of the reasons why I prefer more of 2, because at least 2, the original second film, I'm sorry, I actually do really enjoy the motivation they gave with Michael Myers, why he goes after Laurie Strode. In this, it really serves really much of a purpose what Michael is really doing in this. And I get the whole force of nature kind of thing where he's meant to be mysterious, but the problem with that too is the fact that in this one, it's not really like flat out said of what Michael Myers is. It's only kind of hinted of what he pretty much is in some regard. But I still felt like it was really the filmmakers really, both the filmmakers of this really didn't know what they were trying to do, like they were in the last film, what they want to do, whether it's, are you trying to stick with him being human or supernatural or whatever he is. You know, they couldn't keep consistent with that in certain parts with Michael Myers and what really the purpose is, because this really feels like a very empty film that is very, you know, is really kind of a very, like a filler film. No, well, in that regard, it's almost like, I know this is kind of a common comparison. It almost kind of feels like The Last Jedi in some ways. Now, I'm not going to go into that because I really enjoy Last Jedi and all, but I'm just saying in that field, how, you know how you have like your middle film of a trilogy, and yet they kind of do some things in that feels more like it's more of like the end. They kind of do that here too, where they have like this climax that takes place that, like I said earlier, I enjoy it, but it really feels like it could have been the end of the series right there if they went with that. Because the way it ends, it just feels like, okay, now you're just really pushing more into the next film. And so, the other thing I can honestly say too is that, much like a lot of, in some of the last film and some of the, it's what's common with a lot of movies like this nowadays, and it's been an old cliche that I wish they would fucking get rid of, is the dumbass actions that some of the characters take, where you have your typical characters where they're going around alone, thinking that they're gonna, you know, doing something, and they get themselves killed. And then you have certain things that they do that are very, very logically I couldn't really buy. For one of the examples, I will say is a big con. They bring in this subplot that involves where one of the other escaped mental patients from Smith's Grove escapes, and they're making to believe that he's mistaken to be Michael Myers. And honestly, if you probably would have maybe cast an actor that was more, I'd say, at least on the same size as Michael Myers, I could probably buy it more. But this guy, he sticks out so much like a sore thumb that it's easy to identify he's not Michael Myers. I don't know why they went with that plot. It was stupid. So that is one of my biggest things, because it really felt like that portion of the story really didn't really do anything other than making it seem like it was basically a way of the whole force of nature thing with Michael Myers' purpose of what he's doing. And I thought that could have been completely out, and it really wouldn't have changed much, really, in the long run. And then, when it gets to the end, there is some questionable things that I kind of wonder, like when it gets to the ending, it really feels like it just kind of ends abruptly, and it really feels unresolved. And also, it kind of creates sort of a loophole, well, kind of a plot hole. I don't know if it's considered a plot hole or anything, but it has a scene that the editing, the way it's done, it really makes no sense the way you look at it, the way the scene plays out. Not to mention, again, I can't go into detail without spoiling, but the way it's edited just feels kind of off, and it stuck out kind of like a sore thumb. So I will say that was one of my other biggest cons too, is that the writing, once again, while it ups certain things, it still also lacks a lot of stuff that keeps it really from being a good movie. So with that being said, I will say that while I had fun with the film, and I will say being in a crowded theater was fun, you know, hearing everybody's reactions and stuff, and being around seeing a Halloween movie again on Halloween is a tradition I like doing, and I enjoyed a lot of the kills, and it's entertaining, but it's still not a great film. We're still not there yet on making a great Halloween movie again. But with that being said, I will say it was a step up, and with that, I'm going to give the movie a high average Joe on the Film Freaks meter. So, for those of you who have also seen Halloween Kills, and also the other Halloween movies as well, let me know in the comments below what you thought about it. And thank you so much for watching, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next review. I'll see you later.